maybe there's a little bit of like old head mentality with the delivery, but like, I think it's effective. I think that they're like, this dude has been around. He knows what he's talking about. He's got a great resume before he even stepped in the debut. Like, this is not some guy, like, I'm not trying to throw strays, but last year, who just kind of was like stumbling through it. This is completely different, and I think they respect him. And so I think that there's a big difference there, and you can see it. And, you know, for as long as he's going to have the trust of that locker room, and I mean, even with the comments, I've seen no indication that, at least at this point, I've seen no indication to the contrary. I think that they've got a really good foundation, a really solid foundation. And to me, he deserves a lot of credit there. And I don't think it will be much long. I will say the one thing that is the AZ in the starting lineup. It's at this point, you have enough of a sample size. She had the breakout game, like you mentioned, Justin. Like, come on, we don't need. And so if she's not in that starting lineup, the next game following such a performance like that, a team win like that, a dominant win like that, then I think it's gonna, you know, just add fuel to the fire there, but I don't think it will be
Hi,
much.
everyone. Tim Kitzer with you, the voice of NBA Jam. From top journalists and authors to rising influencers and insiders, Hoopsology brings you the voices driving basketball forward. With elite guests and sharp analysis, Matt, Justin, and Alan keep you plugged into everything hoops. From downtown, boom shakalaka.
I want to transition to the Dallas Wings.
Yeah.
Currently 4-3 to start the season. That's the recording of this podcast. A lot of just conjecture with just Jose Fernandez, his coaching style, just how he's played Azzi Fudd. I believe Azzi had one of her best games of the season playing the Liberty. Just your overall impressions of this team, just Jose's coaching style, and just what you've seen so far from the Wings earlier on.
Yeah, Jose has definitely had some comments that, I mean, I don't think he regrets. He comes across as a guy that he says what he thinks, and like that's just it. But, and I think that can be a little dangerous. But I saw that when I went and I saw the Wings in preseason. I saw them I live in Austin, so I saw them in Austin and against the Aces, and I was extremely impressed with how you can just see how high Coach Fernandez's standards are. And you can see how much, I mean, yes, there's been some significant roster turnover, and we'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure. But the way that they're playing together, the way that the selflessness, and I know he used that word selfish a little bit earlier on in the season, but even in preseason, the way they were already playing together, the way they were already implementing his system effectively, both on the offense and defensive end. Last year, when they struggled to finish simple plays, they struggled defensively to stay connected, and they I mean, they didn't have a lot of size last year. That's a huge difference between last year and this year. But at the way that they're already playing, you know, you kind of expect that transition period, that gel period from a team chemistry standpoint, but also a system implementation standpoint. And I was wildly impressed by how fast and how far along they already seem in those areas. So from that perspective, I got to give Coach a pass on what he's saying because I'm seeing it. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I'm like, the players seem locked in with what he's saying. So how I feel about if what he says was a little too tough or whatever, as long as they're locked in, as long as they're playing the way they're playing, I don't care what he says. And so I think that they're just as on board as he is. I think he understands the moment and what the opportunity he has with Paige and the pieces around him. And I think one of the biggest feathers in Jose's cap at this point is how efficient Arike has been. Last year was a really, really tough year. There was a lot of ISO ball, not just for her, but for the whole team. It was, again, a lot of roster, not turnover last year, but you got players coming in and out. Last year was wild for so many reasons, but Arike has been incredible in transition. In the half court, she knows exactly where to be. She's improving, keeping the ball moving. She's playing the right way. She's playing efficient. Her decision making is so much better than last year. And defensively, a lot of Smith struggled. She has struggled to start the season. There's no like ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I do think that they understand that they need the size, they need the length, they need her experience, and even just her communication back there. She's got to rein it in a little bit with the foul trouble and some of the offensive decision making and ability to finish around the rim. That needs to improve a little bit. But Jessica Shepard, probably having her best year of her career so far. She's just boomed with the Wings. And so having her there has been incredible offensively. And again, just adding more size. And then even Awak Kuer, who joined rejoin the team this year. She's been awesome. I won't be surprised to see her get the nod in a couple of these starting lineups. And she's been super fun, adding floor spacing, adding size. Also somebody that can add like the help side defense and rim protection. So they've got a lot of really interesting pieces. And then obviously Azzi, the apple of everybody's eye, the apple of my eye, like the way that she slots right in and just all around the floor, and like just that quick release, like just such a seamless fit. And so the way that the team is balanced, the additions that they've made, the system and the impact, specifically defensively, like they had offensive talent and they added with the first overall pick. But the biggest question to me was going to be the defense. You know, could they get stops against some of these loaded opposing teams, at least like Atlanta, New York, like some of these teams that just feel so stacked with star power, and they've done a really solid job. And so I've been very impressed with how they've started the season. They have some things that they'll continue to work out, but this is their first year with a group that's at the top, 2, back-to-back first overall picks. So I've been very impressed. I think even though Jose gets a little bit of criticism with some of his comments, and deservedly so, because they're bold, he's walking the walk. So I love what I'm seeing from them. They've been very fun to watch. A lot of teams in the W have been really fun to watch this year. So it's fun time for sure.
So go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to ask, do you think the maybe polarity of those comments are something that's, brought more unity to the team, kind of like standing behind their coach if there's controversy around his comments?
Yeah, I do think that there could be some of that because, I mean, Jose, obviously his relationship with Gino, like, you have Gino's support, you have Paige's support. You have Paige's support, everybody's gonna, like, that's their leader. She's done a great job, especially being someone so young, vocally leading that team as a whole, but, like, also on both ends is just it just seems like they're all in line. And so, as much as those comments, like, because I want to say it was Nikias Duncan who said, you only get so many of those comments where you just, like, lay out the team in front of the microphone before you lose their trust. And I thought that was a great observation. And I was like, that's true. Like, anywhere you look, that is true. And so I thought about that, but I was like, was that his early, like, wake up call? Because, oh God, what game was it? There was a game against, it might have been Atlanta. I think it was that Atlanta game where they started real strong and then they just collapsed. They absolutely collapsed. And the way they collapsed on both ends was just, it was like they went right back to last year. The defensive communication out the window, layup after layup after layup. And offensively, just ISO bucket, clank, ISO clank. And it was just, like, infuriating to watch. And so I do think that his high standards and just the way, like, I just think he's saying it like it is, and maybe there's a little bit of, like, old head mentality with the delivery, but, like, I think it's effective. I think that they're like, this dude has been around, he knows what he's talking about, he's got a great resume before he even stepped in the W. Like, this is not some guy, like, I'm not trying to throw strays, but last year, who just kind of was, like, stumbling through it. This is completely different, and I think they respect him. And so I think that there's a big difference there, and you can see it. And, for as long as he's going to have the trust of that locker room, and, I mean, even with the comments, I've seen no indication that, at least at this point, I've seen no indication to the contrary. I think that they've got a really good foundation, a really solid foundation, and to me, he deserves a lot of credit there, and I don't think it will be much long. I will say the one thing that is the Azzi in the starting lineup, it's at this point, you have enough of a sample size. She had the breakout game, like you mentioned, Justin. Like, come on, we don't need, and so if she's not in that starting lineup the next game following such a performance like that, a team win like that, a dominant win like that, then I think it's gonna just add fuel to the fire there. But I don't think it will be much longer. So it's in my mind, it's all good. Just keep winning. And I think he's right with that. If you're winning, should be no issues.
So with the Wings, you mentioned having 2 number 1 picks. We've seen a lot of WNBA teams upgrade their facilities. Do you know what the next phase for the Wings is in terms of, that they do play, I think, in American Airlines Arena sometimes, but their home is the College Park Center. So what's kind of their future? Because they have, possibly 2, one franchise player for sure with Paige, but looks like with Azzi, it could be the same thing. So what is kind of their future in terms of upgrading facilities? Because that's been a big thing in terms of attracting free agents. It's not only about just the roster construction, it's also about what the franchise can offer itself as well. So I'm just curious what the Wings, in terms of they've done the improvement with the coach, the roster, but of course there is the facilities as well.
Yeah, and also I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because I really do think that the facilities, even in the NBA, like those are things that get so undervalued by everyone having conversations from afar, so undervalued. And with the W, it's that much more drastic because the markets are so different. And the Wings had been so far behind up until this point. And so my understanding is that next season, I believe Jose said that they will be playing all of their games in the American Airlines Center while the new facility is being built. And then I believe in the season after that, they're expected to play in this new arena. So I'd have to double check that, but I know that he said it a little too early, and I think he got him a little bit of trouble for that. But he said that next year there's going to be games in the American Airlines Center, and they will be making that transition. So up this whole offseason, there were sort of some legal, I guess, speed bumps of like, hey, when are we breaking ground? When is this getting moved? And it finally does seem like the speed bumps are in the rear view, and they're moving forward on both the practice facility, the new arena, and kind of getting the ball rolling there. So I do think that's around the corner, and they'll be in good shape. They'll be in good shape moving forward, because I think that's kind of the biggest thing that's holding them back right now, and partially why I was a little surprised to see them get so many vets, even like Odyssey Sims and Alicia Clark, for example. Like Odyssey Sims is starting right now, but Alicia Clark is on a bench, and her role is very limited, and I don't know how that's going to shift for Odyssey Sims over the course of the season. But these are players that could have, I'm sure, had options to go play elsewhere. So I think it's very interesting to see that they came to the Wings, and I think that speaks to Paige and kind of what they're putting together, even despite where the facilities are at this point.
So I noticed also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when the Wings win, to explain their tradition we've seen with Sacramento, there's light the beam, and with the Lynx, they do the electric slide when they win. But the Wings have a very unique tradition I've noticed. That started this year, or if that's been in the past in terms of a victory? I'm curious. That's seen within the NBA and WNBA. We've seen these traditions pop up in terms of a team getting a victory. If you could describe what they do when they win. I found that very unique that I have observed so far.
Yeah, so that has been around. I don't know when it was there last season. I don't know when it. I don't believe last year was the first season. It may have been, but I do. Yeah, the lighting the reunion tower. I think in theory, there's a lot of good intention behind it, but I think when you're looking at like what it is in practice, I think there's room for improvement. And last year when they're lighting that reunion tower after every game, you can see the players laughing at like what it is. And so it's like, all right, if we're gonna have a tradition, it's gotta be a little, we've got to get it up here. So I think that there's gonna be, I like that they have a tradition. I'm all for the post-game win. I think it's awesome. But I do think that there's some room for improvement, because right now you should go, if you're not familiar with it, you should go look up what they light and just feast your eyes on that, because there's a lot to be desired. I'll leave it at that.
And then a final question for me, with the rest of the W, lots of excitement, expansion teams, really just beginning competitive season of change to, how refs are calling things. What have you observed so far on this early part of the W? Anything that stands out that's catching your eye?
That's a good question. God, I feel like season to season with the NBA, it's pretty obvious what they're focusing on, but I don't necessarily feel like there's anything specifically with the W that has been like, okay, such a point of emphasis that it's maybe like there's been maybe a little too much of an overcorrection. I do feel like it's been a little, Azzi commented after, like, I think it was a preseason game where she was talking about how the fouls and like the physicality, where she's expecting this crazy physicality, and it's like, you can't touch anybody without getting a call. And I've definitely seen a lot of that, not just with her, but I'm like, all right, come on. What are we doing here? We got to get this is a little a little timid. Like, let's get this thing going. And I think most players would probably be in line with Azzi's sentiment there. So I think that's probably the only thing that I've noticed. But other than that, yeah, I honestly, they're a lazy answer, but I haven't necessarily noticed anything, I guess, disappointing up to this point. Thank God.
Right. Lauren, we appreciate you spending the time with us. Thank you very much. I was just giving your recap of the Mavericks and what's going to happen with the Wings. Can you let our audience know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your work, and anything else that our audience should be aware of as well?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This was awesome. I love talking Mavs and Wings, especially at a time like this. So thank you so much.
Sure.
You can find me on Twitter at _Lauren Gunn, Gunn. 2 N's on there. I'm always talking. My favorite time of the NBA is transaction season, whether it be trade deadline, the off season. It's so exciting to me. So I'm always talking about who I think could be a good fit where, who I think might be available that people either may expect or may not expect. So come chat with me, because your favorite player might just be on my feed.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.